Now, you're dealing with a narcissist, and every time they talk to you, you just feel paralyzed. You have no idea what to say because they are master manipulators. They know exactly how to get the best of you. So here are just a couple of things that you can say to talk them down, to get them to calm down, to get them to be disarmed. So the first thing that you can say to them is, I agree with you. Even if you don't agree with them, just say, I agree with you. If they're saying things like, you're a terrible cook, or you've never been good at driving, or finances aren't your strong suit, or something that's just trying to goad you or to try to manipulate you or try to get you upset, rile you up, then you just say something like, I agree with you. Sure. That's fine. Whatever you say is correct on that. The thing I would caution you about is, obviously you're not going to say that in an email or in a text. And when they're saying like, you're a terrible mother, you're not going to say, I agree with you, or you're an absent father or a deadbeat dad. You're not going to say, I agree with you. But if it's something that's relatively innocuous and who really cares, then just say, I agree with you, because they're only saying that to try to inflame you and get you upset, to try to, get you emotional. And for most of us, it actually works. And for most of us, defending ourselves is really the first natural reaction. I mean, if somebody's saying something about you that's not true, then you want to say, that's not true. Here's many examples of how that's not true. But you're never going to get the narcissist to go, oh, you know what, you're right. So just say, okay, I agree with you. So that's one way that you can disarm a narcissist. Another thing that you can say is, I don't agree with you, but you have a right to have your opinion, and I also have a right to have mine. So you're basically saying, whatever you're saying is ridiculous or whatever, but you don't have to put it in those terms. You can just say, you are entitled to your opinion I am entitled to mine. And there's really not a whole lot they can say about that. I mean, they might try to say, well, it's the right opinion or whatever, and you can say, it's absolutely your opinion and it is right to you. You say things like that, you're acknowledging that they spoke, which is what they want. They want you to acknowledge that they spoke. They want you to hear them. They want you to see them. All human beings want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. And so you give them that, but you're not agreeing with them. And you're not pushing back, and you're not defending yourself. You're not trying to prove they're wrong and all of those things, because of course, you're never going to get anywhere with that. So you're just kind of disarming them. You're pulling back and you're saying, you are certainly entitled to your opinion, and I know it's right to you, and I know that you wholeheartedly believe it. Great. You are entitled to do that. I am also entitled to my opinion, and we can agree to disagree. Another way to disarm a narcissist is to use we phrases. Even if you don't think that you did anything wrong or that you need to do anything to make it better, you can just say, we need to work on things, or we both have a faulty perception about, or we both have contributed to this situation, something like that. Because if they feel like you're not targeting them and that you're taking part of the blame and responsibility, then they'll feel less like they need to keep pushing. And so that will also help disarm. So using we phrases will definitely help. We will work on this together, that kind of thing. Another way to disarm a narcissist is to kind of assuage their ego a little bit by saying something like, let me ask your advice on this. How would you handle this particular situation? Let me see what you think about this. How would you feel about doing it this way? Or what's your opinion about if we decide to proceed in this manner? Or what do you think about this plan? Getting them to weigh in on something that you think that they're being ridiculous about will help them And so you just get them to, it also kind of makes them sort of highlight the ridiculousness of their behavior. You have to be careful because obviously if they've already given you a plan and you don't like it, then this is not the time to use that particular phrase. But that's one of the things that you can do to disarm a narcissist. Another phrase that you can use is, I hear what you're saying. And basically remember that a narcissist is the most insecure, the most they have absolutely no inner self-esteem. They derive absolutely all of their value from the external. So by saying something to them like, I hear what you're saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm validating you, here's what you said, because a lot of times they think, oh, you're not listening to me. So just by saying, I hear what you're saying, and here's what you said, just that alone will sometimes disarm them because they feel heard, they feel seen, and they feel like you have given them the value that they need. Remember, narcissists need an endless amount of supply. And so, supply is given to them in the form of compliments, or it could be, in being in a certain position, or it could be recognition in some way. It could be just even being associated with the right people. Supply is just whatever it is that feeds their need for external value. So if you say, I hear what you're saying, and you repeat it back to them, even if you're then going to go on and say, and I don't agree with you, and you are entitled to your opinion, at least they feel heard. So these are phrases to disarm the narcissist, to try to get them to calm down a little bit.
And I want to give you everything that you need to finally power through and break free from that narcissist. It's just so exhausting. And they make you feel small. They make you feel like you're going crazy. They make you feel paralyzed. And know that feeling. They literally suck the energy out of you. And especially the ones that are like, really, really good at it. The covert narcissists are the ones that are really good at it, where they have something that we call plausible deniability, which means that they have this ability to literally do things where everybody else in the world thinks that they're amazing, wonderful, good human beings, and they can keep themselves looking pristine, perfect, not a hair touched on their head. So when you go to tell people what they've done, everyone else goes, I don't know, that doesn't seem so bad. Or maybe you're blowing it out of proportion. Or maybe that was inadvertent. They seem like such a good person. They seem so nice. So you end up seeming like you're the crazy one, or you're contributing to it too, or they spin it around so that they seem like they're the calm ones and you're the ones out of control. And they do this so that the marriage counselors are on board with this plan too. I mean, it is unbelievable how good they are at this. So if you really want to be able to spin this around, you really want to be able to stop this craziness, you want to be able to disarm the narc. And by the way, I've got a whole download that goes with this. Go to disarmthenarc.com so that you can get your own download that goes with this, get your own phrases. So you don't even need to make sure you write all this down, because I'm going to just give it to you. Just go to disarmthenarc.com so that you can just download it. All right. So here are your 20 phrases. Ready? Number 1, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. You can just say that, and you don't need to scream it, and you don't need to yell it, and you don't need to say it in any sort of fashion. You don't need to have tone. If they're screaming, they're yelling, They're saying things that are in any way, you're not feeling good about it. You just need to say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. Here's something that I'm going to say to you. There's certain things that are negotiable and there's certain things that are not. Here's what's negotiable: terms of contracts. Here's what's not negotiable: your self-respect. So, you can just say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. So that's number one. Number two, you can say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. If you're not feeling comfortable with it, they're speaking to you in a way where they're degrading you, they're talking down to you, they're disrespecting you, they're yelling at you. You can just say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. And you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing. Nobody is holding you hostage. You can get up, you can walk away. And even if they yell, you don't get up, don't walk away. It's okay. It really is okay, because you have your self-respect. So you can just say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. And you don't have to. So that's number two. Number three is, I'm not going to let you treat me like this. Again, I'm telling you right now that narcissists, the people that they respect the most, are the people who don't allow them to treat however they want. You will start to see a shift in how they treat you. They may scream, they may yell, they may act like they don't like it, but you will start to see little shifts in their behavior. You have been conditioned by them, and you need to start conditioning them back. So when you start to say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way, and I'm not going to allow you to treat me like this, things will start to change. The next one is, I deserve to be treated with respect. So you're drawing a line. You're saying, I deserve to be treated with respect, and you're letting them know there's a new game in town. Things are different now. I give people a 3-step process. Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. You're no longer walking backwards. You're pivoting. You're walking forward now. And as you're making that pivot, you're going to start to present your offers. You're going to start to speak. You're going to start to stand up for yourself. And as this process unfolds incrementally, step 3, you're going to start to break free. Number 5, you need to stop this immediately. When you start to create boundaries, that's when they start to realize that there's a new game in town. So in that vein, you're no longer saying you can contact me in 57 different ways. You're saying you only get to contact me in one way. Maybe it's just through text message. Maybe it's just through email. Email is the best, by the way. There's a time and date stamp. Everything is documented the right way. You need to stop this immediately, number 5. Number 6, I'm warning you, if you don't stop, I will take action. Is it a threat? Yes. But you are going to follow through with it. What kind of action? Who knows? You may call your attorney. You may call the police. You may leave. Who knows what that action is? But action means action. You need to follow through with your action. Whatever that is, you've got to follow through with it. Because if you don't, they will never believe you ever again. That's number 6. Number 7, this has to stop now. If it doesn't, what are you going to do about it? Number 8, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And if it doesn't stop, what are you going to do about it? Number 9 is similar. Enough is enough. When things aren't happening the way you want them to, what are you going to do about it? The next one is, I can see that you're upset. I like when you can start to observe their behavior. I like when you can start to take yourself out of it and just start to watch them, because that will help you no longer be baited by them. The more you can start to do that, the less you will be dragged into their conversation, the less you will feel like you're sucked into that vortex of insanity. The next one is you're out of line. You're just letting them know you are not in a place that I feel comfortable. So that's number 10. And number 12 is you're crossing the line. Number 12 is you're letting them know that you had set a boundary and they're no longer on the other side of that boundary. You're crossing the line. You're crossing the line that I have set for you. So I'm not allowing you to pass that line. Number 13 is you're pushing your luck. You're pushing your luck. Number 14 is you've pushed me too far. You've pushed me too far. Number 15 is if you don't back off, I'm going to take action. And again, I want you to actually take action. I want you to actually take a look at the options that you have and actually take action based on the options that you have, whatever they are. So, if you're in a court case, then you can take a look at the cases that, the options that you have in your situation. But, if you don't have a court case, then, take a look at whatever your options are. But, just take a look at, should you file a motion? Should you, leave, or whatever it is that you have, your options are. The next one is you might want to consider. So in other words, you are just saying something to them about what they may want to consider based on what's happening in front of them at that moment. The next one is you have every right to your opinion. It's fine that they have their opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's your opinion, which is fine. And then the next one is that's an interesting perspective. You're just observing, again, their behavior. That's an interesting perspective. And I love that one because it's observing what it is that they said. You're not getting involved with whatever it is that they said. You're just saying that's an interesting perspective. And it just keeps things neutral. The next one is your anger is not my responsibility, because a lot of times they want to say, you made me angry. This happened because of you. And this pushes it back on them and says, hey, you are angry. Your anger is not my responsibility. Just the same as if you're angry, their anger is not your responsibility. Somebody can choose to get angry or choose to stay calm. Nobody's anger is anybody else's responsibility but their own. How you choose to respond to a situation is everybody's own responsibility, own choice. And that is such an eye-opening thought. It really is very eye-opening about anger. And the last one is one of my favorites, which is I agree with you. Now, you got to be careful with this one because you don't want to say, I agree with you that I'm a horrible mother or a deadbeat dad. But I like to say I agree with you on certain things because you can say, I agree with you that that's your perspective. I agree with you that that's what you think. Because, it's a way to kind of calm somebody down in a way, because you're saying I agree with you, but in a way you're saying you're not agreeing to anything. And I love being able to do that. I love being able to say I agree with you and agreeing to nothing. It's kind of a trick. In a way, it's ethically manipulating the manipulator, because you're actually saying I agree and you're agreeing to zero. So I'm just going to throw in a couple more for you just for fun, to say that you have a few more. A few others are okay, and you just say nothing. You just acknowledge that they spoke, and take no bait. You just say okay. And like the less you say, the more they just want you to say more and you've said nothing. You say, okay. Another one you can say is using we phrases, like we can fix this or we can work on this, because that kind of diffuses situations as well. Another thing that you can say is I hear you, because I hear you just acknowledges that you're hearing them, and that makes people feel better because you're acknowledging them. It acknowledges what people are saying, and you're not defending yourself and you're not fighting back. You're just acknowledging what somebody is saying. So it's a good thing to do sometimes. And you can also say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that's how this is going. I mean, it's not really saying I'm sorry at all. You're just saying, I'm sorry that's what you think. Or the other one you could do is what I hear you saying, and then just sort of repeat what they say.
What's the one sentence that stops a narcissist in their tracks? I'm not going to argue with you, because you know what? If somebody's pushing and then you don't push back, what are they going to fight with? Sounds simple, right? So you got to stay all the way to the end here, because I'm going to break it all down for you. Let's break down why it works so well. Well, narcissists thrive on control. And let me tell you, I've seen this in the courtroom. I've seen it in mediations. I've seen it in arbitration. I've seen it in all different scenarios. I even train corporations. I train all kinds of entities. They feed off of your emotional reactions. But when you say, I'm not going to argue with you, you're doing three things. Now, stick with me here. You're cutting off their need for supply. So they need supply. You're not giving them that emotional reaction they crave. You're taking back your power. You're setting a boundary without engaging. You're shutting down their manipulation. They want you to defend yourself. They want you to be squirming. They want you to be in that emotional state. They want you to be explaining. They want you to fight back. That sentence robs them of that opportunity. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to comment below. So sure. Sure. And have you ever tried something like this? What happened? I'd love to know your experience. Here's the other thing I want you to try. Instead of getting angry, I want you to try getting curious. Oh, that's interesting. What makes you say that? Oh, that's interesting. What makes you think that? Almost become like a detective. How narcissists react and why you should stay strong. When you first say this, expect them to push harder. They're going to provoke you even more. They're like a toddler having a tantrum. They're going to scream louder, kick more. Hey, I need to have it. I want that bottle. I want that candy. I need to have it. They might accuse you of being the one who's crazy. You're the one who's unreasonable. They might try to guilt trip you. You're a horrible mother. You're a terrible parent. Whatever it is. Or you don't care. You don't care about this relationship. Here's the key. You have to stay strong, and you just got to repeat it over and over again. I'm strong. I can do this. I'm bigger than this. Whatever you got to do, because you cannot take that bait. You cannot take that bait. The moment you engage, now they have you. They hook you like a fish with a hook in the mouth, because that's what they're looking for. It's exactly what they want. They want you in. Now you got it. Now they got you.
Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change. Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win. Become a high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today.
How can you use this sentence in different situations? How can you say, I'm not doing this in different situations? So if you're in a relationship with them and they say, you never listen to me, you're so selfish, you say, I'm not going to argue with you. So in a divorce or a custody situation, you're a terrible parent. Kids would be better off without you. When they send you this wall of texts or emails or whatever it is, you just look for whatever it is that you need to respond to, and you respond to that. That's it. You don't need to respond to the whole thing. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to go point by point by point. If it's a workplace situation, it's your boss. Oh, if you were actually competent, I wouldn't have to fix all your work. Okay, I hear you. You need to say, I hear you. I'm not going to argue with you. You notice something, you're not explaining. You know what I always say? Never jade. I always wear jade because I'm half Chinese, but never jade. Never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Because the minute you start doing that, now they have you. That's what they want you to do. Don't defend, just shut them down. Never argue. Just say, I'm not going to argue with you. You know what the bonus power move is here? The bonus power move is the gray rock technique. You just become like a gray rock. You combine never jade, never argue, I'm not going to argue with you, with becoming like a gray rock. You just become emotionally neutral. Keep your responses short and dull. Okay, sure, You don't react to their insults or drama. I like to use something I call SOS. So stop, observe, and then speak. I think it was Mark Twain that said between every statement and response, there's a space. And you know what you get to do in that space? You get to stop. And then you get to have a moment before you respond. In that moment, you get to pause and you get to take a breath. And then you get a choice about how you respond. So you respond, you don't react. And you observe their behavior, but you don't absorb it. And so you get to put an invisible shield down around you and you get to observe their behavior, but you don't have to absorb it because you don't have to take anything that they do or say personally. So, and by the way, if you want phrases to disarm a narcissist, go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my free phrases to disarm narcissists, because that'll help you. It's a great tool for having something at the ready to say, emails or texts or whatever. It's like some frameworks for you. So you don't have to engage with toxic people. You don't have to justify yourself. You don't have to give the narcissist any more of your energy, your headspace, or any of you that you don't want to. It's your choice. And this sentence is your power move. Use it, stand firm, and see how quickly their manipulation loses its grip over you. So if this video helped you, make sure you hit that like button, you hit that share button, so that way anybody who needs it gets this strategy.
All right. Number one is set boundaries. Set boundaries. I know you guys have heard this before, but you've got to do it. You've got to set a boundary. The first thing you've got to do is put that invisible boundary down around you and then set a boundary against them. They thrive on manipulation. They thrive on control. They thrive on pushing boundaries. They want to see how far they can go. They've been controlling you. They've been manipulating you. They've been conditioning you from the beginning. That was what that love bombing was all about. It's crucial to start establishing those clear boundaries. And I know you're like thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do it. But if you just even do one small thing, but first thing you do is, I always say, step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. So as you're just like completely righting a ship, you're like turning it all around 180 degrees. So the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to say, you know what? I deserve respect. I deserve respect. I deserve honor. I deserve to be valued, honored, respected, and I don't care who they are. And you can start seeing them as if they are a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. And you can start just looking at them and start observing their behavior to them. And you can say, I can see that you are upset. It's crucial to establish clear boundaries. It's not about restricting others. It's about honoring your own needs. Boundaries are something that they have created, because you wouldn't have needed to put the boundary up if they didn't behave in a certain way. So you don't need to feel guilty about it. You don't need to have an explanation about it. You don't need to say anything about it. You don't need to have any kind of like, oh, I feel bad about this. No. I wrote about this extensively in my book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, because it's really important that you honor your own needs. And I had to do this myself when I first separated from a business partner. When I threw up my own boundaries, I blocked every single person on social media, all the minions, all the third parties, everybody that the person knew, because I needed to protect me. I needed to protect my own soul, my own sanity. I didn't want to see what other people were doing. This is because I needed to have peace. I needed to heal. And that's what you need to do. And if somebody is undermining you, then setting that boundary and calmly asserting your value and saying, I don't find this behavior to be acceptable to me, and saying it in a calm tone, a rational tone, and even taking your tone lower. When their tone goes higher and you take your tone lower, that makes a huge difference, because the more their tone goes higher and higher and higher, that takes the intensity of the conversation to be more intense. That helps you reclaim your power and establishes a precedent for respectful conversation and respectful interaction as well. So that helps you set boundaries also. The next one is that gray rock method. Gray rock, that means you just turn into a gray rock. It's like so boring. You're just so boring. I remember doing this before I even knew the name of a gray rock. I would just be like, yeah. I would be doing this with a particular family member that we have, where I would just be so emotionally like barren. Yeah. Give them nothing. They're constantly trying to get a rise out of you. And you just, oh, that's interesting. And so even when they say something that's super inflammatory, instead of being, oh my gosh, why would you say that? You could just get curious. Instead, you could just get curious. You'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Saying almost like you're an explorer. Like, when you approach things almost like an explorer, you kind of actually get more information out of them sometimes, but sometimes you actually just diffuse the situation, and it robs them of that power over you, because they're trying to suck you in. They go fishing and they're trying to pull you in. They're baiting you to pull you in. And the next one is assertive communication. Assertive, not aggressive. Assertive, not aggressive. So assertive means that you're just kind of going to the line, but you're asserting your power. Aggressive means you're going over. Assertive, not aggressive. Powerful tool in your arsenal, and it's expressing your needs and your wishes in a confident manner, but without being over the line with teeth. When you do that, when you go over the line and you're with teeth, then that other person feels like, oh, I got to pull back or I got to push over, and you're pushing, pushing, pushing. But when you say, this is what I am requesting, and here's why, here's the supporting documentation, then it's a communication technique. Now, when you're dealing with a high conflict personality, just your being can sometimes be cause for the person to feel defensive, but being assertive, using I statements, using active listening, saying, I hear you, I understand your position, using empathetic tones, things like that often fosters an atmosphere of mutual respect, and definitely often encourages that healthy communication. If you hear me so far, put I hear you in the comments. Put I hear you in the comments. Next one is detaching emotionally. And this is really crucial when you are dealing with narcissists. And this is sort of like gray rock, but this is really when you're just pretty much where I say you become like a reporter reporting the news. This is where you really are just observing, not absorbing. You know that their manipulation is trying to provoke that emotional reaction out of you. And as long as they're getting that supply source from you, they're going to never leave you alone. And so by completely detaching and just, oh, I see that the ball went right past me there, it becomes so uninteresting. You just become so uninteresting. The more you can take your communication to that one word level, or your text or whatever, as little as possible, that will help you. And by the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can get at disarmthenarc.com. I highly recommend that you get those, because that will help you with crafting your responses in text or email, or even in person. The next one, the last one, is self-care and support. Self-care and support. This will definitely disarm that narcissist, because the more that you become independent, the more that you become the person who respects themselves, a person who has your own worth, the less interesting that you will be, because they look for those channels. They look for those places of vulnerability. They look for where they can get in. And if you don't have those little channels of vulnerability, those spots where they can get in, okay, I can't get in anywhere. There's no opening. It's like a shark with blood in the water. There's no spot. Imagine navigating a tumultuous relationship with a narcissistic parent, and by prioritizing self-care activities such as journaling, exercise and therapy, you nurture your emotional resilience and cultivate a sense of inner strength, and you surround yourself with a supportive network. And then professionals provide validation and encouragement on your own healing journey. And then you don't need that other person anymore. And that's what you get when you have a community around you. I recommend that you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, for that exact reason. Okay, because you don't want to try to be doing this alone. And I recommend that you subscribe here and hit the notification bell on this channel for that exact same reason. All right, so there you have it. 5 empowering strategies to disarm the narcissist. Remember that reclaiming your power starts right now. I'm going to count from 5 to 1, because I want to give you the best one last. Oh yes, I'm saving the best one for last. So number 5, we're going to start with number 5. Number 5 is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You start with, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you don't understand. I'm sorry that we can't agree. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You just say, I'm sorry, because it's a disarming phrase. Now be careful, because remember that anything you put your hand to is a trial exhibit, and you don't want to be apologizing for things and then make it look like you're actually saying something, that you did something wrong. What you're doing is you're disarming. You're disarming. Remember, you're shutting down this narcissist. You're disarming the narcissist. You're reclaiming your control. Sometimes you can just say, I'm sorry that we don't seem to be on the same page. It seems that there's a misunderstanding here. I'm sorry that it seems that you're upset, and perhaps we need to continue this conversation another day. You can even say, I'm sorry, it seems that I maybe didn't explain this to you properly, and we can't continue this now. Whatever it is that you need to say, it's a disarming phrase. It's something that they're not going to say unless it's a manipulation, because everything they do is a manipulation. So number 5 is I'm sorry. It's just a way to shut them down, disarm them. Number 5, I'm sorry. Number 4 is we can resume this conversation when you're ready to respect me, because do not sit and have a conversation with anybody when they're being disrespectful to you. If they're screaming at you, if they're yelling at you, if they're being derogatory toward you, if they are saying things that are, not productive, you don't have to sit there and have a conversation. You're not getting anywhere with it anyway. So you can just say, we can resume this conversation when you're ready to be respectful. And then excuse yourself. Here's the one thing that I say all the time. There are certain things that are negotiable, and there are certain things that are not. Terms of contracts are negotiable. Your self-worth, not. Your self-respect, not. Ever. So you can always resume conversations when the person is ready to be respectful. And you don't have to yell, and you don't have to scream, and you don't even have to say it with emotion. You don't have to say, we can resume this when you're ready to be respectful. You don't have to be like that. Okay? You don't have to respond in kind. You just say, we can resume this conversation when you can be respectful. Thank you. And then nicely get up and walk away. Okay. And if they say, don't walk away from me, that's not respectful, blah, 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 whatever it is, you just say, oh, that's not respectful. Thank you. And that's it. If you agree, put respect me in the comments right now. I want you to put that in the comments right now. Respect me, because I want you to remember that that's one of the most important things in any relationship, is to demand respect of yourself. And that's an okay thing. That's not only an okay thing, this should be a non-starter. Okay, it should be a non-starter. Number 3 is I agree. And again, this is something you got to be very careful with what you're doing, because remember, everything is a potential trial exhibit. So you can say things like, I agree with that that's what you believe. I agree that that's what you think. I agree that we disagree. I agree that that's your perspective. In other words, you're not agreeing with anything. You're just agreeing that that's what they think, but just hearing the words, I agree, is just sort of like a salve for people. It's sort of like music to their ears. So when you say, I agree, it's sort of like, okay, they hear, I agree. So that's number 3. I agree. Number 4 or number 2, I'm working my way up. So whether it's number 4 or number 2, depending on how you're like looking at it, is no, just no, because that will definitely shut them down, especially if they're used to you saying yes, especially if they're used to you going along to get along, because that happens a lot of times when you're in these relationships. I know, I've been there too, but then you end up regretting it, la, 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 I know how it is, right? That one is the next one. It's just no, especially if, you just really don't want to do that thing or whatever. Just say no. Just say no, like the old drug campaign. Just say no. All right, ready? You ready for that last one? Are you so ready to find out what that last one is? A good one. I told you it's a good one. This is the most important one. This will definitely shut down that narcissist. This is definitely going to help you reclaim that control. This is definitely going to help you disarm them. They hate this word in a lot of ways, actually. Whatever. This is literally the one word that narcissists absolutely cannot stand. Everyone else is telling you that negotiating with narcissists is a total waste of time, that you can't win. I know, I've heard it too. And I used to feel that way too. Ugh, that person's a narcissist. They come in, they take over. And I've seen it. I've seen it in mediations. I've seen the worst of them. Before I knew how to deal with them, I've seen the worst of them. I mean, I'm thinking about this one guy who came into a mediation, throwing things. I'm not settling. I'm not doing anything. You're doing this. You're doing that. Before we even start, this is how it's going to go. And they take over. This is the way it's happening. And so everyone else is telling you, there's no way it's happening. You can't negotiate with narcissists. You can't communicate with narcissists. It's a total waste of time. So why bother? Why bother? But you know what? That's terrorist tactics. That's terrorist tactics. So what? We're all supposed to just scurry around and give in? The problem with that is that you're feeding a beast. They're never going to be happy, because then what? You think, what is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and then they'll leave me alone. Have you tried that tactic? Do you see how it goes? Do you know where it gets you? Nowhere. In fact, it's worse than nowhere. You end up in torture because they still don't give you what you want. You're not left alone. Your life is worse than ever. You're in this nightmare that never ends. And you're still living in fear. You're still being tortured constantly. And you think, why am I not out of this nightmare? Why am I not out of this nightmare? And I'm going to explain to you why the nightmare has not ended, why you can't get out of it, why it's not over, because you don't understand what's actually going on. Yes, they want to win, but that's not all they want. You have to understand the concept of narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is anything that feeds a narcissist ego. And they want two different forms of narcissistic supply. There's what I refer to as diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world, which is prestigious friends, great houses, lots of money. It's that external stuff, right? But there's also what I refer to as coal level supply, which is the dark underbelly of narcissistic supply. It's that degrading, the manipulating, the controlling, the debasing others. It's that denigrating. That is also a form of narcissistic supply. And that form of narcissistic supply is a form that they also love, that manipulating other people. And they're not going to willingly give up either form of supply, either form. They want both. And the problem that most people have is they don't understand that. They're just thinking they want to win. So they think, what is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and they'll leave me alone. So there's this huge myth out there that narcissists just want to win. What is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and they'll leave me alone. That beast will be fed. I'll be out of here. Let me go. Right. And so what happens a lot of times is that people give up their leverage early on and they think, okay, I'll show the narcissist how good I'm being, how generous I am. I'll give them this, this, and this. The narcissist just takes it. Take. They think they're entitled to it anyway, so they don't think that you're being generous. They're just, great. I was entitled to it anyway. So you didn't give me anything that was wonderful. They don't acknowledge it and go, oh, thank you. That was so nice of you. Well, that was mine anyway. I should have had it. So you just gave something up. You gave up leverage that you should have kept in the first place. So now you're even more behind and you're still nowhere. They're still in your face, annoying you, manipulating you, harassing you, making your life miserable because they enjoy the process of seeing you squirm. They literally get off on that. The problem is the one hack to be narcissist is you have to understand that they're actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. So the more powerful that you become, the more that you understand that the less triggered you are, the more you shift that power dynamic, the less that they're going to have power over you. And that's the hack to beat narcissists. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. That's how you shift that power dynamic, by ignoring them and becoming the most powerful version of yourself. So it's my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be 2 steps ahead of them, and then focus on you, your case, you being on the offensive, your mindset. 99% of winning, communicating with narcissists, any of that is focusing on your side of things, and winning is you showing up as the most powerful version of yourself. And then that is when the narcissist is going to go, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? I can't make them squirm anymore. They're not afraid of me anymore. Now I'm getting afraid. Now I'm nervous. What's happening? Is when you start shutting down that supply source, all the supply sources, that is how you beat them. That is how they start to get nervous. They don't know what to do with that. It's literally like that Wizard of Oz, where you're pulling that curtain away from the feeble little man who's actually running the thing. You're figuring it out. So step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. There will always be narcissists in this world. They will always be toxic. The one that you're dealing with right now is the one that you're dealing with right now. But there's always going to be more that come along. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. There's 15% of the population. I mean, chances are there's going to be more. So the best way to handle them is for you to become the most powerful version of yourself, and for you to realize that deep inside of your soul that you were meant for more, that you were meant to step inside your power and live to what God and the universe is creating for you to be, which is the highest intentions for your soul, and live to that, because then no one can come near you. No narcissist can come near you then. No one can come near you. You're like an oak tree that just stands. And when the wind blows, you're not blowing with it, because they don't define your worth. No one has the power to define your worth. You know, you can negotiate contracts, you can negotiate terms. What's not negotiable is your self-worth, is your self-respect. Those are the terms that are not negotiable. And in this video, I'm also going to give you 8 key phrases to help you shut down those narcissists before they absolutely drive you crazy. All right, so let's get started. The first thing is that you want to understand that they want you want to kind of take yourself out of this situation. So the more you can kind of start looking at it almost like they're toddlers having a tantrum on the floor, the better it's going to be for you. Because what they're trying to do is drag you into that quicksand with them, drag you into that mud with them. And there's a number of reasons that they do that. One is that they get something called narcissistic supply by dragging you into that mud with them. And that feeds them, that feeds their ego, it feeds their inner empty self by doing that. It's kind of like I call it their food, their lifeblood, their oxygen. And that's what they need. It's that inner emptiness that they feel. And by doing that, you're kind of feeding that. And that's why you end up feeling so empty yourself. They call them energy vampires for a reason. And that's part of the reason, because you end up feeling like you're being sucked dry. I remember when I was dealing with a business partner who was a narcissist, before I even knew anything about narcissism, I used to think, my God, it's like a leech. I just feel like I'm being leached. And I didn't know any other language to use, but I just felt drained, sucked dry, like the life was being drained out of me. And that's why you feel that. So you want to understand that you've got to figure out a way to create these boundaries to stop that draining from you, to stop that. So the way you've got to start is, I call it step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. And step 3, break free. That step 1 is that first step. It's so important to start to look at things almost as a third party, look at things almost as an observer. And so that, when you're using these phrases, you almost have to take the emotion out of it. All right. So that's the first real step when you're using these phrases. Okay. Look at it as if you're looking at a child having a tantrum. Looking at the narcissist from an observer point of view, and you stop having the emotional reaction. You can go afterwards and scream into your pillow, cry in the shower, talk to your therapist, whoever you need to, and have your emotional reaction afterward. But when you're with them, not have the emotional reaction there, because that feeds them. That is what they are looking for. That is what they want. The next reason that you don't want to have these emotional reactions is because they will use these emotional reactions against you. So not only are you feeding that need for supply, but you're also potentially going to hurt yourself, because what they're trying to do is bait you. What they're trying to do is trigger you, manipulate you, and get you to do something so that they can potentially use your emotional reaction against you. So, and especially if you're in the discard phase of a relationship with the narcissist, they want to be able to go, oh, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one. There's the one that has the problem. And if you're in a court situation, it happens all the time. And I've seen it with my clients. I've seen it in situations where on the stand, in situations that were extremely inconvenient, cross-examination, trial, depositions, where you don't want it to happen, right? And they're very, very good at that, where they look like they're the calm ones, the collected ones, the charming, charismatic ones. And then everybody else in the system thinks that they're the normal ones, the non-narcissistic ones, the fine ones, the good ones. The other party is made to look like the emotional one, the one with the problem. because they bait you, they trigger you, they make you look like the crazy person. So you want to be very, very careful about not taking that bait and not allowing them to trigger you. Remember, everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. What you write, what you post on social media, how you respond to those text messages, to those emails, to those direct messages, what you say in conversations, what you say in front of people. Be very, very careful about those things. So that's why, go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my key phrases for disarming narcissists. You definitely want to do that. These are some cautions that I have for you. And then the third reason why you want to be very careful about how you are responding and talking to a narcissist is because every single time you get baited, every single time you get dragged into the mud, that narcissist, as long as you're giving them supply, they're never, ever, ever going to leave you alone. They're never going to be gone because they're still getting that food. They're still getting that lifeblood. They're still getting that oxygen. So they're still going to come around. 3 good reasons to use these key phrases for shutting down narcissists. Okay. So number 1, you can say something like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way. Now, be careful you don't say, I'm sorry, or whatever, unless you are sorry, but you just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I understand that that's what you think, whatever, but I'm sorry that you feel that way. You're not saying anything really. You're just saying, I'm sorry that that's how you feel. It just basically kind of puts it back on them. That's how you feel. I get it. I'm sorry that's how you feel. And it just lets them know that I heard what you said and I acknowledge that that's what you said. I'm sorry that that's what you feel. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2 is I have no control over the way you feel. I have no control over what your thoughts are. Again, you're acknowledging what they said. You're acknowledging that you heard what they said about their thoughts. And you're just saying, I have no control over what you think. Not saying that you agree. You're basically saying you don't agree, but that you just don't have any control over what they think, nor do you wish to. Okay. And you have no control over the way you feel about me or this situation or what they think about anything. So that's number 2. Number 3 is your anger is not my responsibility. You can also say your triggers are not my responsibility because a lot of times they are trying to say that they're angry at you, or they might say, you trigger me, you make me angry, all of those things. Their anger about things that you do, or if you trigger them, it's not your responsibility. They have to be responsible for that. Just like if you are triggered about something, it's your responsibility to manage your anger, to manage your triggers, right? Each of us have to manage our own triggers, our own traumas, our own anger. That's our own responsibility to deal with, right? I mean, we have a choice about how we respond to situations, and that's on us. And so that's on them. And so you can just put that back on them. Your anger is not my responsibility. That's number 3. Number 4. Number 4 is one of my favorites. I love this one. Number 4 is I agree. That's your opinion. Because you know what? You're basically not agreeing with a thing. But they often hear you say, I agree. So you're saying, I agree. That's what you think. I agree that I heard you say that. You aren't agreeing with a thing, but I agree that's what you said. I agree that's your opinion. I mean, I understand that that's what you feel. You can say things like that, that basically you're just acknowledging them, but you're not agreeing with the thing. I hear you. I agree that that's what you feel. I understand. Things like that are all just acknowledging, but not really anything at all. Okay. Validating in some way. And that's really a lot of times all that people want. Number 5 is I can see that you are. And you just insert the emotion. I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are angry. I can see that you are sad. Whatever it is, just articulate whatever the emotion is that you see them feeling. A lot of times, what's crazy is that you'll say, I can see that you're angry. And they'll say, I'm not angry. How is it that you're feeling? Because they'll be raging. And you'll say, I can see that you are angry about this. I'm not angry. Or they'll be screaming, yelling. I can see that this is upsetting to you. I'm not upset. Because when you call them out on their behavior, they'll be like, oh, I'm not that. They don't want you to characterize their behavior in such a way. It's just kind of funny. But actually observe their behavior to them. That's number 5. If you are so ready to slay all of this, slay your communication, slay your negotiations, that's what we do here. We slay. Strategy, leverage, anticipate, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your case, your position, and slay everything with narcissists. I want you to put slay in the comments right now, because that is what you are going to do. You are going to slay this. You're going to slay this. You're going to shut them down. Put slay in the comments right now, because you can do this. You can shut them down. Put slay in the comments right now. All right. Number 6. Number 6 is another one that you can do. It's like, that's an interesting perspective. That's an interesting perspective. Again, you're just kind of acknowledging. I can't tell you how many times, hundreds of times a day, I get emails from people that, they're like, you know what? I just pulled out your phrases for shutting down narcissists. I picked one and I emailed it back and it totally worked. Or I have a few memorized and I just pulled one out, used it, totally worked. So totally suggest that you do this. That's an interesting perspective. So that's number 6. And number 7, here's where you're going to really start to create some boundaries. All right. If you want a narcissist respect, start feeling the power. They respect people who stand up to them, who have some confidence. All right. Start to say things like, if you want to engage in a conversation with me, you're going to have to remain calm and not emotional. Or say something like, be factual, not emotional. You're going to have to speak to me in a way that's respectful. There's certain things that are negotiable. Contracts, issues, and terms. There's certain things that are not negotiable, and that's your self-respect. That's your self-worth. So don't allow them to speak to you in a way that's not respectful. Okay? All right. So if you want to engage in a conversation with me, you're going to have to remain calm. You're going to have to speak to me in a way that's respectful. Just say something like that. Totally okay. And it's totally okay for you to go, okay, well, you know what? If you can't, then this conversation is over. Period. And finally, the last one, you know, if they say something that's just absolutely nuclear, not okay, you can just say, I'm choosing not to respond to that. And that's okay too. You know what? I'm choosing not to respond to that. Don't defend yourself. Okay. When you defend yourself, you are giving credence to the other side, you're giving credence to their position, you make yourself look weaker. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Now, let's dive into disarming narcissists and 10 verbal tactics that they cannot stand. All right, so the first one is refusing to argue. Well, what do they want you to do? They want you to argue, of course. Nothing fuels a narcissist like a good old-fashioned heated argument. They want you to engage with them. They want you to get into it with them. They want you to get into the mud with them. They want to pull you in. They want to get you down into it with them. So instead, stay up here, you know, stay above that fray. Just smile, you know, while they're trying to go fishing and drag you into it. Maintain your composure and avoid falling into that trap. Because let me tell you, it gives them supply. There's three reasons why you don't want to do that. Number one is it gives them supply. Number two is, especially if you're in litigation with them, you're negotiating with them, or you're trying to get rid of them, they're using things against you. They're looking for ways to use things against you. I always say that dealing with a narcissist in situations like this is like getting arrested. Anything you say or do is going to be used against you. Okay. And then number three is, as long as you're giving them supply, they're never, ever going to leave you alone. All right. So they're going to come back for that supply. They're like storing it up for the winter. So never, ever, ever give them a reason to keep coming back. You know, just stay calm. You can go scream, you know, somewhere else, scream in your shower, cry in your pillow, beat something else, but never give them a reason to see that. All right. So refuse to argue. Don't give them that reason. Give your perspective, calmly give your perspective, but, you know, deprive them of that conflict that they're desperately seeking from you. I hold my hand up like this. If there's nothing there to push against, then there's nothing there to come back for. Just remain calm. There's nothing there to get from you then at that point. So that's number one. Number two is the power of asking clarifying questions. It drives them absolutely crazy when you do this. When they make a statement and then you ask them to clarify their intentions, it drives them crazy too. You know, when you ask them to explain their intentions or the purpose behind it, they hate that because you expose inconsistencies. You expose their hidden agendas. So, you know, what you do is you say, I just want to clarify what it is that you're saying. So, in other words, what you're saying is that you don't want to continue to have this particular conversation. What you would prefer is that you remain here and I do this. And when you just simply restate back exactly as they stated it, they'll actually say, no, that's not how I stated it. Now you're stating it wrong. No, now you're misquoting me. You are wrong. You're misremembering. They get so upset because they don't like having their agendas repeated back to them. It drives them absolutely crazy. If you just simply restate or ask them clarifying questions. So just to clarify, is this what you're stating? And say it like almost innocently, say it like naively. Oh, I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're saying. No, help me to understand. You know, say it like that. I'm dense. You know, I'm trying to understand what it is that you're saying. So moving on to tactic number 3, you can have honest compliments. While it might feel uncomfortable at times, you can give them genuine compliments. it completely disarms them because they do crave validation. They crave recognition. And so a sincere compliment at a certain time can momentarily actually soften their defenses. And, I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. But at times, especially if you want to get something from them, sometimes I call it fluff for favor, vomit later, where you can give them a compliment in exchange for getting something that you want. Oh, do you mind making dinner, or make this particular dish? You're so great at it. Do you mind grilling? Oh, everybody loves when you grill, you're so fantastic at making the steak. Nobody makes steak the way you do, or whatever it is that you want to say. Now, you have to be careful because obviously you don't want it to come off sounding inauthentic, because they can definitely tell when it's inauthentic, and you don't want to say anything good about yourself because they don't want to hear about that either. And you don't want to do it too often because then they can tell that, you're pandering to them. So this is very strategic in your use of this. You're using this strategically and to your advantage. Now, let's discuss the importance of acknowledging their feelings without getting sucked into their drama. So validating their emotions sometimes without getting entangled into their manipulative games. It's a bit tricky sometimes, but the way I think of it is observing it as a third party. I can see that you are upset, appears that you are angry. I can see that you are emotional, almost as if you are a reporter reporting the news, and you don't need to get down into the mud with it. And sometimes I like to state it almost as if you're an adult looking at a child having a tantrum on the floor. You can empathize with them without being a pawn in their psychological chessboard. And remember, they're going to get insane. They're going to go crazy, and they're going to try to distract you from whatever their true intent is. And they might say all kinds of crazy things to gaslight you. Don't get sucked into that. Don't get sucked into their mud. And I have a whole video, by the way, called Insane Things That Narcissists Say to Distract Us from Their True Intent. I highly recommend that you check that out, because they play these psychological games. So don't get sucked into that mud. Another one is you want to maintain a sense of boundaries while you're acknowledging the narcissist's feelings. All right, the next tactic is respectfully setting boundaries. One of the ways that I like to do this is something that I call making a plan stand. So you communicate like maybe a time limit ahead of time when you're going to go meet with them. And you say, hey, I can meet with you, but I only have 30 minutes, or I only have an hour. And then when that time limit is up, you say, I have to go, whatever it is. I have a meeting afterward, or I have something. That way you psychologically know ahead of time the amount of emotional energy that you are going to be having to spend with this person. And then when that time limit is up, that's it. That's all you had to do. By asserting your boundaries, you are now starting to take control. You're starting to assert your independence. You're starting to protect your own well-being in this situation. And you're starting to now grow your independence. One of the things that I say is step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. And that's the way I sort of picture it, as far as shifting that dynamic and turning it around in baby steps. The next one is neutrality and being objective, and how that plays a critical role in your tactics. So being neutral and objective. And by being neutral and objective in your interactions with them, it helps tremendously. So the way I like to put this is, never being defensive when you're having a conversation with them, never allowing them that satisfaction of, explaining yourself, justifying yourself, right? You never explain, justify, you never overshare, and you deny the narcissist that attention and approval that they so desperately seek. That way they don't monopolize you and control. They attempt to control you. They're going to attempt to control you, but they don't get to. And by the way, I have phrases for disarming narcissists, which I definitely recommend that you get that are for free. And you can get them at disarmthenarc.com. So disarmthenarc.com, phrases for disarming narcissists. And it's so important to differentiate genuine compliments and flattery and pandering, when it comes to disarming narcissists. Insincere praise only reinforces that narcissist. So be mindful of that distinction and giving into their manipulations. All right. So the next tactic is in staying in control of yourself, staying in control of yourself. And it's so crucial to stay in control of your own emotions and staying in control and keeping your emotions in check. So important when interacting with that narcissist. By doing so, you maintain control of yourself, of your emotions, and prevent that situation from spiraling out of control. And the part of the way that you can do that is by limiting your interaction with them and having those boundaries, because otherwise that narcissist is going to try to bait you and try to, do everything they can. They know what your Achilles heel is. They know how to, pick at you and try to get at you. So the next thing is, let's discuss the importance of mindful body language. Even subtle changes to your posture or facial expressions can impact the conversation with a narcissist and disarming that narcissist. Just subtle changes. They're so aware of your body language. And just, if you sit up straight, if you hold your hands like even a steeple pose, or you sit like this, the more confident that you can be in your body language, the more they will pick up on that. They will recognize that you now feel more powerful in yourself, and it will disarm them. You hold your head up high. They know who you are now. I mean, a powerful person is a narcissist kryptonite, a truly powerful person, a person who knows who they are. So tactic number 9 is standing your ground without being confrontational. Be firm and assertive in your discussions with a narcissist, but always maintain respect. This way you can express your opinions and your boundaries without coming across as overly aggressive. You don't have to be aggressive, but you can certainly stand firm. And finally, the last tactic is expressing your thoughts while remaining respectful. This is the power of disengagement. So sometimes the best approach is to disengage, and you can just say, I'm choosing to no longer be in this conversation, and distance yourself from toxic interactions with that narcissist, and prioritize your well-being when it's necessary to step away and say, this conversation's not working for me. And so we can resume this conversation at a time when you are calm, and that's fine. And, emphasize your own self-care and disengage from that narcissist. You can disengage respectfully, but you can disengage in a way that letting them know that their behavior is not okay for you. And there you have it. That's 10 verbal tactics to disarm yourself from a toxic person.